It's Mike Messier there. This is Mike Messier. Jon Jones has regained his, or retained, I should say, championship or whatever the fuck. Regained, retained. Look, I'll be honest with you. When Jon Jones first came out, the elbows were just a killer thing. The guy fought on a couple of fight nights. And Jon Jones, it's one of those athletes, or celebrities, whatever you want to call him, who it's almost despite himself, and this controversy about these steroids will never go away, unfortunately for him and his legacy. But you have to give it up. He did win this fight, convincingly, obviously. But at what price? What price victory, folks? And I'll give credit to the devil himself, not the devil, but just Dave Meltzer was very opinionated with Brian Alvarez. Of course, they're more known for pro wrestling, but Dave Meltzer is very experienced in UFC coverage as well. He was and that's my shoe rack, by the way. You're looking at my massive shoes, Ultimate Warrior back there, the big Ultimate Warrior. But Jon Jones is the topic of hand. What does it mean when someone, a main event fighter as he is, causes a whole fight to be displaced? All the people that bought tickets for UFC in Vegas either had to be SOL, shit out of luck, or relocate to California somehow. I don't know if UFC stepped in and paid people's hotel or plane, for the audience. And some people say, well, who cares? The California people got to see it. But when you kind of screw over 15,000 people, more or less, who plan their weeks or their weekends around this fight, that's a sizable chunk of fans. And that does cause fans, as Dave Meltzer said, to wonder what confidence does the consumer have in buying tickets. And, I know in the excitement of Jon Jones winning this fight and getting that championship at the end of it, people might look past that and say, oh, well, gee whiz, he won. But there's more to it than that, folks. The last Conor McGregor, his big fight that ended with the controversy, McGregor, of course, lost. Then you had all that cage fighting, the non-fight fighting. What does that do? It's a blemish. It's a black eye. UFC has really come through leaps and bounds. I remember getting that Sports Illustrated with Ultimate Fighting Championship on the cover. I guess it was more than 10 years ago, or about 10 years ago. Seeing the sport come so far. This UFC didn't exist until 1993. So for those of us that are old enough to be alive when UFC was born, this is still a pretty new sport. And you want to see UFC do well, but I do think it might have been an error in judgment, putting the talent ahead of the other talent, the fans. Everyone kind of took a back seat. And I guess I'm just in a point in my life, folks, where I don't see Jon Jones or anybody else being above the rules. And we're just in this really weird tipping point with society in general where, we have different sets of rules for different people. And if you're rich and famous, or you're powerful or influential or talented, which is the goddamn worst thing somebody could be at times, because then you get that ego, you feel empowered, or you can do no wrong in the world. It's, to me, you feed that ego, you feed that lack of fairness, Dana White and UFC, by doing such a thing, by relocating the entire show. Now, what Dave Meltzer said, I'm giving a lot of credit to Dave Meltzer because he finally made sense on something. He said what they could have done is they could have had the Jon Jones fight, Gustafsson fight, in California, and the rest of the show stick in Las Vegas. Now, obviously, some fans would be upset with that choice, because you would then have a thing where, 11 fights are in one venue. Maybe you throw those people a bonus fight, and then this main event is at some offshoot venue that you get for, maybe 5,000 seats or whatever in California. But at least the people that came all the way to Vegas weren't robbed of the entire show. And then, of course, you could broadcast the fight closed circuit. That was Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez were saying that. Do I think that was I think it's kind of a cool solution to this quandary. Some fans would say, well, why would someone want to fly to Las Vegas to see a fucking Jon Jones fight, but then he's not there, and you're watching on TV? Sure, that's a good counterpoint, in which case Meltzer's offering was to refund the tickets or to make that a powerful a choice. The fans would have a choice. But I think the fans really lost out on this, folks. And I think, once again, this hierarchy, putting this chosen one, Jon Jones, above the rules or above the system. I don't think he's a guy, no offense to Jon Jones, but I don't think he's a guy that people like myself who do still have a moral compass aren't going to want to pedestal that guy. And when you see a company like UFC constantly pedestal someone, meaning put them on a pedestal, I just don't live like that. I don't breathe like that. And so, for those that are just joining, thank you for watching. This is just my reaction to the Jon Jones fight. Obviously, he won the championship, or regained the championship, whatever the phraseology in the situation. He's the champion. Jon Jones is the winner. My thing is, I'm still kind of ruffled my feathers about these 15,000 fans in Las Vegas being put out. And it's hard for me to get enthusiastic about Jon Jones' victory or his career right now, seeing that, UFC is kowtowing to him. And why not kowtow to somebody else? I mean, there's plenty of top guys. I mean, Anderson Silva, years ago was a top guy. Ronda was the top woman for a while. But when you kind of pedestal a superstar like that, I think you need to pedestal the sport. You need to pedestal the integrity of the sport. UFC is still a new sport. My opinion, and I could be fucking wrong, is that you put the sport, the rules, the morality above the hijinks and the crap. You don't want UFC to be another thing like boxing where it's corrupt, or even, no offense, but the NBA where it is a players' league. I mean, the players do dominate the negotiations. I'm not a big owner heavy guy like the NFL either, but my thing is, folks, I like fairness. I like things like that, fairness, and I just don't see that the other fighters on this card or the 15,000 fans in Las Vegas were treated fairly. I think this was a kowtowing to Jon Jones, and you can make a case that, the drug testing is not fair, whatever the fuck. But I mean, I think, he kind of put himself in a shitty position, meaning Jones. And once again, just saying, listen to Brian Alvarez and David Meltzer discussing this case a couple of days ago in depth. And I'm not going to steal Meltzer's words, but I think if you listen to that, you make a really, we have to kind of look at life, for the few people that are watching right now, look at life and say, why am I pedestaling these people? Why is these supposed heroes of our generation so great? Do something with their own goddamn lives. That's what I keep doing. For those that have never seen me before, I do Mike Messier's pro wrestling video rants and other sports rants. And a big recurring theme of my videos, folks, we have to be our own champions. We have to be our own heroes. When we constantly put these athletes or these entertainers above us, we're demeaning ourselves. If we constantly worry about what Kim Kardashian's ass is up to, or what gender Caitlyn Jenner is today, and I'm not trying to be demeaning to her, but I'm just using that as an example. But when we put these celebrities above our own lives, when we care more about them or their fucking problems than our own goddamn problems, we're just diminishing ourselves. And I don't know how else to say that. I've said it a million different ways, but when we, pro wrestling fans, when they put Lana and her hair color above their own problems, then you're just being a child, quite frankly. And for Jon Jones in this particular case, because this is the topic of this video, for Dana White to kind of revolve the whole show around him and his fucking predicament, I think it diminishes the legacy of the UFC, quite frankly. I don't think that if this had happened, the Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture era, I don't think they would have evolved a whole fucking predicament and to bend over backwards for this. I do see that Dana and the UFC, I'm just using Dana as the figurehead here, but they were in a tough spot because obviously you have a lot of fans who want to see Jon Jones. He's had a couple of fights postponed because of these fucking steroid things. We do have a comment here. Mikey, do you think Ben Simmons and Kendall Jenner's exception? You probably know more about Ben Simmons and Kendall Jenner. I mean, look, Kendall Jenner, I've seen her. She's a gorgeous young woman, obviously. I guess she got a little heat, was it last summer, for a Diet Coke commercial where she's like helping the police officer, and people thought it was, everyone's so goddamn sensitive about everything. They thought that the video was taking, Black Lives Matter not seriously enough because they were kind of not really parodying it, but kind of referencing in a commercial. We're in a weird world, folks. We're in a weird world these days. And, what is celebrity and what does that mean? I mean, I'm doing a fucking video, 5 people are watching, and I appreciate that 5 people are hearing me ramble. But as far as my own thing on this Jon Jones fight, for those that are chiming in, I mean, I did talk more about it earlier. Once again, congratulations to the guy. I just don't know if it was worth it. You know what I mean? Other things going on in the world. I mean, what the hell to say? It's the end of 2018. Here's something going on for the 5 or 6 people, 4 people. One person just left. Mike Messier. It's 2 years. 2 years, basically now that I've been off medication. Now, for some of you kind of new to the Mike Messier world, you might be wondering what the fuck does that mean. But I was on a medication that I was not supposed to ever get off my entire life. And basically, I just chose to get off this med and went cold turkey. And against, the doctor's, warnings, but fuck it. I'm still here, folks. I'm still alive. So, I mean, and some people say I'm doing better now than when I was on it. So I don't know if that lost another person who doesn't give a fuck about my life, but that's fine. As far as this Jon Jones thing goes, folks, congratulations and all that. My reaction, he won. I don't know what else to say. I do think it kind of puts a thing on UFC once again to say, you're pedestaling this guy. You're making him above the rules, and therefore the rules mean nothing. And I don't know if that's something that I want young fighters, because you think about UFC, you think about mixed martial arts, it's supposed to be a credo of honor and integrity. If you go to the Kung Fu masters, karate masters, and for people, UFC to cater to this guy and not to, who knows about the actual drug testing and so forth, but to kind of bend over backwards for him, I do think it sends a wrong message. Dana or whoever might say, well, we're trying to have our fighters back, but that's one guy. Everyone else was very severely inconvenienced. As Dave Meltzer pointed out, the taxes in California are 9 to 13% higher than they were in Las Vegas for these fighters, so a lot of fighters lost a good chunk of change on this thing. And was it worth it? What price victory? So, obviously, these days in the world, morality and integrity don't seem to have a lot to do with people's viewing choices, but I would and I would like people to think about that a little bit. So now we just got a couple of people watching the documentary itself of me getting off these guys. You do see the Ultimate Warrior back there, folks. For those that know who that is, the Ultimate Warrior. I did have a chance to meet him. That's a picture. I don't know if you can fucking see it, but if I can, it's my finger. Trying to close up on that. That's me and the Ultimate Warrior from a couple of years ago. And that's him kind of 2012. Of course, he passed away a couple of years later. Anyway, folks, if anyone's got a comment, pipe it in real quick. And thanks for whoever's been watching me for 13 minutes. I know I got my buddy out there in Colorado who's been watching some of these videos. My buddy Frank in the OWN. MikeMessier.com. And for those that are watching this later on and not doing the live, if you just happen to find this, I've got a new person watching. Hey, how's it going? If anyone wants to chime in with a comment, basically, Jon Jones wins the fight. What does Mike Messier have to say about it? It's fine that he won the fight. Good for him. At the same time, I just don't know if the whole thing revolving around him and the UFC going out of their way to fucking revolve this whole inconveniencing 15,000 people, inconveniencing all the other fighters on the show. The fighters lose money because of the taxes, as Dave Meltzer was pointing out, in California. And I think it sets a dangerous precedent that when you revolve your sport around one guy, in this case Jon Jones, in this case UFC, you are basically making a statement that there's a hierarchy. And in my opinion, that never was part of the UFC thing. Throughout the 2000s, the whole thing with The Ultimate Fighter, having a hierarchy in UFC was never the way it was supposed to be. So I just don't agree with the UFC's decision to do this fight in Las Vegas, in California, in order to, wrap it around Jon Jones. I don't think it's fair, and I think it sets a dangerous precedent. And I think that what happens, folks, is that there's a seed is planted, something's established now that we don't feel that we can trust UFC. If you bought a ticket for this fight in Vegas and you try to get there and then they move it to California, you feel like a fucking asshole. And so unless Dana White's gonna, send these Vegas people a stack of fucking poker chips to make it up for them, I mean, what are they gonna do? Does it make good? Anyway, folks, no one else is really commenting. I guess whatever I'm saying is so profoundly interesting that you're just listening to me babble. I think I've done a fairly good job of saying stuff, for 16 minutes without, having a script. Once again, as far as my own life, it's 2 years without medications for Mike Messier, doing something that most people wouldn't have the fucking balls to do, just going cold turkey without a goddamn med that I was supposed to take for the rest of my life. So I might have a video on that later. But if you're still here, then subscribe. I got a ton of fucking cool videos. I got my own short films. Beautiful women on my talk show, Messier Mantra, as well as guys. Notice always I say beautiful women as well as guys. Like I don't give a fuck about the male guests. They're okay too. But if you check out some of my short films and so forth. But Mike Messier, another viewer just chimed in. Hello, new viewer. Thank you, number 3. Jon Jones has won the fight. What do I think about it? I think it's good for him and all that, but I think it's bad for the sport. You can go back to this video, and I gave a clear explanation, almost to the point of redundancy, why I feel that this is bad for the sport of UFC. I feel that Jon Jones has won the fight, obviously, but I feel that the UFC, as a general, lost tonight. I feel like the UFC lost tonight because when you pedestal a guy, is what I'm calling it. I'm calling this a pedestal moment, folks. They pedestal Jon Jones. They put one competitor, one fight above the rest of the entire sport. And I think in the short term, people might just want to pop. They just might want to be excited for Jon Jones. But in the long term, I think this is detrimental to the UFC. And I'm going to stand by that fucking opinion. And I do give credit to Dave Meltzer, especially, and Brian Alvarez for kind of raising this topic of these 15,000 fans that, lost something, whether it was a plane ticket, hotel fees. And I know that people watching at home, if you're in Ohio or New York and you don't give a flying fuck about these fuckers who bought these UFC tickets and you just want to spend your 50 or $75 to watch this fight, that you don't care necessarily about the other fans. But in my opinion, how a business conducts itself does matter. It does matter to the integrity of the fucking sport. And we've had, people still talk about, 50 years later when JFK was shot and assassinated, that the NFL played football 4 or 5 days later. People don't forget this stuff. Sometimes we just think that people forget things and all's well and that ends well, and that the means justify the ends and ends justify the means. But in my opinion, the UFC lost tonight. They did it to themselves. Once again, citing the Meltzer-Alvarez video. Anyway, folks, we did have a couple of comments earlier, or one. That's a good way. I'll just give you a little humor. When you do these videos and you get like one comment, then just say a couple, because it sounds more interesting. But if anyone wants to chime in and pop a fucking word or two in, go ahead. If you have any thoughts on the fight, chime in. Someone had a good comment earlier. I made a Kim Kardashian reference, and they hit me up with one of her sisters. Blah, 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 blah. As far as other things that are going on in the Mike Messier world, I have gotten into, believe it or not, and this is an exclusive, I've been using essential oils lately, and I know that sounds like I don't look like the type of guy that would sit around and fucking cook up some essential oils, but I normally like to burn incense sticks, and I've been finding these essential oils, they're essential, but they're also kind of nice because you don't get all that smoky residue on your fucking walls. Anyway, folks, we're hitting the 20-minute mark on this. If you did watch this video, if you watched any part of it, feel free to share it. Someone else just chimed in, clicked in, how you doing? Basically, I said congratulations to Jon Jones, but I do think it's a pedestal moment. I think the UFC put one guy on top of everything else. I did get really in-depth earlier, fourth viewer. Please go back in this video when it's up and watch my whole babbling mess. For those that think I might have something to say about this, feel free to share this video. Look at the Messier Mantra. Look at Disregard the Vampire, a Mike Messier documentary on my short films list. I know that I kind of got some people in here tonight because I was just talking about the Jon Jones fight, but there's more to Mike Messier than just sports opinions. And I want to thank you all for watching. I think that's pretty much it. So I'm going to crack my vitamin. If anyone goes to see a chiropractor, I do recommend that. I'm hanging out. I'm chilling out. And now we're signing off, Mike Messier. Thanks for watching, MikeMessier.com. Thanks for everyone that chimed in. Checked out the fight. Hey, look, I hope you enjoyed it. Turn this off.